Welcome to Tarkov, the ultimate survival shooter game, where every move you make can determine whether you live or die. If you're new to this game, I know it can be overwhelming, you might feel lost at first. Don't worry, you're not alone. When I started playing Tarkov, I felt the same way. The game is designed to be intense, immersive, and challenging. That's also what makes it so thrilling. My name is Seto Kiba, and I'm a seasoned Tarkov player with around about 3,000 hours of experience at the time of this recording. I used to make videos about this game, but I've been away for a bit. I'm back now, and I want to help new players like you navigate your very first raid. Now that the awkward introduction's out of the way, let's start with your first raid. And to make it as least stressful as possible, we start with a Scav Run. If you ever stop by the stream, you'll know I have a bit of a different opinion on Scav Runs. I don't usually run them myself, but I appreciate their use after they've been implemented in the game for some time now. To me, the number one use of a Scav Run is to introduce new players in a completely risk-free environment. Secondary is to grab some of that cash money, the croutons you pilfer off the dead, the very meat and drink you consume at the expense of a local. But that's beside the point. For today, we're going to take a regular Scav Run that you would typically see on a map that some might consider boring. That's right, the Grand Shoreline, home of the original Tarkov Bush Wookiee, before migrating to Woods, land of the sneak, home of the sniper. Naturally, this environment is suitable to my comfort playstyle, and perhaps you'll find comfort here as well. But before we begin, let's address the number one killer of Timmies in the Norvinsk region, sensory overload. In terms even a scav can understand, it's when so much is happening that your brain smooths out any remaining wrinkles left, thereby inhibiting your ability to think critically or simply. The best way to handle such a phenomenon is to take it one step at a time. Identify sounds, gauge distance, and determine if you are safe enough to think, or if the lizard brain needs to kick in and scurry off to the nearest bathing rock. Jokes aside, there are ways to combat this phenomenon. The first and most obvious way is through experience. It should come as no surprise that experience irons out most kinks, and sensory overload is no exception. The more you play the game, the more comfortable you'll be in it, and the less you'll lock up under pressure. Don't ever feel shame in locking up, everyone does it at some point, even with experience. Second point, learn to identify important versus non-important sounds. This one may seem difficult, but really there are two sound categories to tune into: movement and muzzle report. Movement is simple. If you hear something near you that isn't you or a friend, that should automatically be considered a threat and treated as such. Muzzle report, or the sound of a weapon firing, can sometimes tell you if you're being shot at, if there's a firefight near you, or if there's an engagement off in the distance. Depending on your goal, you can use this audio information to move in to engage targets, shift to intercept, or, as is most likely in our case today, avoid and preserve your safety. The third, and what I consider the most important, is threat assessment. After a bit of time, you'll be able to determine the basic type of weapon being fired, even if you're not identifying the exact platform. It's relatively easy to tell the difference between a pistol caliber and rifle calibers, and know that a pistol, while still dangerous, does not have the range threat a rifle will have, or the happy war crime stick of a shotgun. However, this may not be available, as later in wipes most players tend to have access to suppressors, and will use them on larger maps to mask their audio. If you have the option of using a suppressor, you should absolutely use them. When you're starting out, however, you will likely have to go loud and proud. So make sure to choose your fights carefully and move quickly after firing. The fourth, always do something. Never be idle. Now, this does not mean never hold an angle or set up a sniper nest in an area. Those are still actions with purpose. What you should never do is walk into a building, for an example, hear footsteps around, and immediately crouch and stay still out of fear. If you heard them walking around, they most likely heard you, and it's time to either hold an angle and get ready to engage, or it's time to dip on out at the earliest convenience. All of this, of course, will come with time. Don't feel rushed to stamp out the overload, and don't be afraid of fear. And you will be afraid. Nobody likes dying in Tarkov, but everyone eventually accepts its reality. You will too. Now then, on to the real subject of the day, your first raid. As we stated before, we'll be taking a Scav Run to start. This one, full disclosure, is a relatively safe raid. Not much happens during it. However, it is important to understand the reasoning for much of what I'm doing, why I'm running where I run, and how I react to potentially life-threatening situations. But before you start a raid, it's important to educate yourself on your potential exfils. Therefore, it's good to have a map open on a second monitor if you have one, or at the very least, gloss over a map before you begin a raid. Running as a PMC will have the advantage of consistent exfils, so definitely study those up. For the Scav raid today, I already have my most used Scav exfils memorized, since I have the goal of running in and out very quickly. As we traverse, I will show you on the map where we are pathing and why. This should give you a general idea if you'd like to replicate a similar Scav run, or if you see loot you're looking for and want to know location. So, without further delay, let's get moving. Alright, now we're just doing a little bit of a voiceover, kind of explaining what's going on as we go through. You'll have a little bit of text pop up that'll give you some helpful info. We have the map here, obviously, with a couple of key things to keep in mind, including where we spawned and where the exfil is. All well and good. So first thing that I like to do on these Scav runs is we go to these stashes, wherever we're at, not really looking for anything specific, but notice that I haven't really heard a whole lot of activity at this point. So I feel pretty safe. This hasn't been looted. Pretty confident that we can just go ahead and do this. Not super worried. Because of the weapon that I have being a bolt action, I have no plans whatsoever to go into any enclosed areas except for the estates and for the lower and upper villages. Just because I feel safe doing that. Out of habit, I tend to check that rock for sniper scavs, even though I'm not in danger of them. It's good to always have that habit. So I was running through here. Typically, I suggest not to skyline yourself like this. But again, we're feeling pretty safe, and we're keeping our head on a swivel, so to speak. The most important thing is that you just keep moving. Don't make yourself an easy target to see as we're going through here. As we're doing this next crest up here, I think it's going to happen. Yeah, it's going to happen right here. There's going to be a little bit of a little truck wreckage to our right you see coming up. This is a pretty common spawn for scavs. I like to go here when I'm trying to pick up scavs, but in this case I'm actually trafficking through here to see if I see any scav bodies so I can try to track a player. Didn't see any, so I'm just moving over. There's a stash up here. I'm gonna have the map come up again in just a second and show where this location is in case you need a little bit of a map reference for it. But kind of notice how when I'm moving, I keep looking around. I'm not just running blindly to a specific location. Very rarely do you want to move in a straight line anywhere at all. Okay, so I pick up a couple things there. Mostly junk. This honestly isn't worth a whole lot to me, but it's good to kind of demonstrate it. I'm always keeping track of audio in the distance. I don't have anything that really gives me cause for concern in this raid, but if I did hear something, I could make a decision to go and investigate, or I could just carry on, or alter my path. So here we're actually sitting above a place called Suicide Fields. And you never want to go out in the open like that, which is why we're choosing to go through estates like we are. Okay, right there, we're going to spot a scav. Most likely it's AI, but we're going to keep in mind that it could be a player scav. And player scavs are kind of iffy on if they're going to be friendly with you or not. So we just kind of, that's just information we're looking at, we're noting it in the back of our head, we're moving on. We hear some scav lines here. Always checking around. Give a little scav line ourselves here. Now, as we walk in here, you're going to see I got another scav that comes up on me here. This one is clearly a player scav, so I do a little friendly hop. I don't VoIP him. See, he gives a little nod right there. I nod back. I want nothing to do with him. I'm just trying to run through. I don't want to get caught up in any sort of drama, so we just move on. So I also make the decision to not loot the estate safe or anything, assuming he's going to go for that. So you can see the current position here. We're actually going to go ahead and loot through this village here. I'm speeding it up at this point just because there's really nothing that happens. You can see I grab a couple stashes through. Nothing really significant happens here. On the overlay here, you can see this is where I start in the village. This is where I end out of the village as I head towards upper. Pretty basic. Not a whole lot to really discuss with it. Biggest thing to keep in mind is just try not to stay out in the open for too long. There's a couple places here that you have to loot them in fairly exposed positions, but nothing too crazy. It's going to be pretty standard throughout here. I'm keeping it in, though, just to kind of show you the full path that we're taking. And then up here, we're going to have a very key moment. There's another stash there in case you were wondering about that. So here, I'm going to loot up a little bit. As we come out of here, this is a very common situation you're going to have. You're going to find a dead body out here. And you'll notice here, I start to slow down a bit. I have a little tap on him, see if he's got anything left on him. Not really interested in looting him, but see how I'm slowing down. I don't think anybody's here, but I'm just checking. Clearing out as many corners as I can. I haven't heard anything. I'm not super worried. I'm just kind of doing my due diligence here. And that's probably the most important thing. Just make sure that if you have an inkling that somebody might be around, just do your best to check it. And here, even while I'm looting, I'm still kind of slowing down. Notice another body. I'm kind of piecing together what happened here. I feel pretty confident. And then here you're going to see I listened for a little bit. I sped this up because I took a little bit of time just trying to be as safe as possible here. Picked up a helmet there too. Then we just go ahead and we just exfil, and there you go. That's the bare bone basics right there. Much simpler than you think it would be. I mean, okay, I thought I was extracting. I forgot. I do a little bit more looting, but it's essentially over. There's just a little bit more that happens here. Nothing too crazy. No combat situation to break down. We had one encounter with a player that was peaceful, and you can have that. I would suggest getting used to using VoIP, but if not, you can just use exactly what I did there. I see somebody, I jump around a little bit in a non-threatening way, just to make sure that, you know, we're all complacent here. And then in case you're super new, here's a very basic thing that you can do. Strip off everything from the scav. Might take you a little bit to load out of here. What I like to do when I don't have flea market, this is assuming you don't have flea, I take everything to the sorting table. I empty out everything from the rig. I empty out everything from the bag. I strip all of the weapons so that everything is in individual components. And then I sell to traders in a specific order to try to maximize as much as I can. I've done this for a long time, and so far these still seem to be the best prices. As far as I know, I haven't had any issues with them. So you can just see here, I just do a quick little strip down of everything. I empty out containers first, put those down with the armor, and then we strip weapons, because quite often when you find weapons on scavs, they're not going to be in a very good place, durability-wise, so. Right here, I'm just turning in a task really quick. Don't worry about that bit. I probably should have cut that out, but we're going to keep it here for the experience. Right here, we'll just start with Therapist. Anything that can be sold to Therapist, we just go ahead and we just sell straight to it. So you can see here, you can track the number up there to see how much we're getting. I think we average about 250, maybe 270k. I'll have to go back and look at it again. I'm not too concerned with it, to be honest with you, so. Yeah, we just go Therapist, then we go Mechanic, then we go Ragman, and then we go Jaeger, and then if there's anything left, it's most likely grenades. We'll usually sell those ones to Prepor, or we'll use them. But there you go. That is basically it. So congratulations, that's your first raid out of the way. Not exactly a high intensity deal, but you'll find these raids interspersed between your more heated ones fairly commonly. Remember, we're just getting you walking first, not exactly ideal to start running. Now that you've broken that barrier of getting that first raid in, we can start the process of improving from there. But that's going to do it for today. Hope you got something useful out of this video. In the next one, we're going to go over some basic fundamentals when it comes to movement, so you don't just W key forward in a panic. Additionally, we'll introduce you to engaging scavs and how to use them to gain confidence in PvP. But until then, you can catch me on Twitch. I stream Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at around 1800 Mountain Time, Standard or Daylight, depending on the month. Not always playing Tarkov, but always happy to answer questions and provide help as I can. If you're lucky, you can catch us on the Tarkov Tour Guide Day, where we take new players in and give a bit of a helping hand in a variety of ways. So, until next time, and remember, you may be afraid in this game, but the scavs never are. So stay safe, keep smiling, and remember, it's just a game.